Well, good morning. Don't you all look so dapper today? I mean, you really got all dressed up for this distance learning education that we're having this Friday. I'd like to thank you for that. It's good to see you all. Thank you for smiling.
All right, enough of that. Here we go. Right, we're in week 10. Nobody's Mr. Rogers anymore. All right, especially the 4 of you who are left in class. Five of you who are left in class. All right, so today we're going to talk about the inverse sine function. So I put up here again for your benefit the graph of the sine of x. This is the part that we are going to concern ourselves with here. Right? Remember when it is that we're working backwards that we're going to be, we need to have parameters. We talked about this last year in the green book. Right? In the green book, when we talked about the arcsin, we said that you can find the arcsin in the first and the fourth quadrants. Right? 90 to negative 90, right? We're going from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. We remember that pi over 2 is 90, so this is 90 and negative 90. So because this is the inverse, right, we take this thing, we take this the coordinate plane, and we turn it, we flip it, and look at what we have here. Right now, we've taken the x and put it on the y, and the y and put it on the x, and so this is our new graph here. All right, so I'm going from negative 1 to 1. The inputs are from negative 1 to 1, and the outputs are from minus pi over 2 to pi over 2. All right, and so the definition, the inverse sine function, is the function sine raised to the negative 1 power with the domain from minus 1 to 1, right? Remember, the inputs are only from minus 1 to 1, inclusive, because I can get 90 degrees out of this. Right, and a range from negative pi over 2, a range from negative 90 to 90. If you remember from last year when we did this, hopefully some of you guys were in my math class, I think, maybe not, I don't know, maybe. That this is what we talked about, and it's defined by, right, the inverse sine of x equals y is equal to the sine y of x. And we talked about that, right? That's where it is that you flip the two, the input and the output. And it is called the arcsin. This should not be anything new to any of us. All right, so we need to find each value here. So the sine, the arcsin of 1/2, right, if we're going to do this, right, the sine, this is the opposite over the hypotenuse, right? So the opposite is 1, the hypotenuse is 2. That means that this is radical 3. That means that this is 30, so I'm going to have either 30 degrees, right, or what's that, pi over 6. All right, so in terms of radians and in terms of degrees. Secondly here, right, the arcsin of minus 1/2, going to draw the picture again, right, and so this is the opposite over the hypotenuse. The opposite is minus 1. The hypotenuse is 2. This is again radical 3, so this is minus 30 degrees. So this is either going to be minus 30 degrees, which is equal to minus pi over 6, right? 180 divided by 6 is 30 degrees. So this is my first one. This is my second one. The third one here is saying I need the arcsin of 3/2. The arcsin of 3/2. The arcsin of 3/2. You know what? Arcsin of 3/2. So this is opposite. Wait a second. Hold on. Let's go back over here where it says that the domain is from minus 1 to 1, and 3/2 is greater than 1. So there is no solution here, right? Because what it is that I'm inputting is too big. So there is no solution here, right? Because it does not fall within the domain that has been laid out in the definition. All right, so you got lucky on that one. You got lucky there. All right, so the next part here is we're going to find the approximate values for these things. So I'm going to have to get out my handy dandy award-winning calculator. That's right, here it is again. You know, I'll bet you that I could get Kayla to, paint something on your calculators if you wanted, for a small fee of like 20 or 30 bucks. You just send me your calculator, let me know what you want, and that would be great. So, but anyway, so look, this is a really simple way to do this, right? So I'm going to do the inverse sine. So second sine of 0.82, right? And so I have 55.084 degrees, which means that this is going to be approximately, right? So it's approximated at 55.08 degrees. All right? I'm not even going to put that in terms of pi, but I'm going to go with the 55.08, okay? So now this one, when it is that I have a fraction, right, and 1/3, look at that, right? 0.82, this falls within the domain, right? 1/3 falls within the domain too, so I can put these in. And I'll show you after this what 3/2 does. It's really funky. All right, so this time we're going to go with the inverse sine parentheses. Please make sure that you parenthesize 1 divided by 3, because 1 divided by 3 is the same as 1/3. Close the parentheses, and I'm going to get 19.471, so that's going to be approximately 19.47 degrees. Now watch what happens if I am outside of the range, which I probably should have shown you, but I guess I was going to wait until I got to the kakalaki part. So if I do the sine, the inverse sine, did I hit the inverse? I did not. Inverse sine, parentheses 3 divided by 2, right? And what I get is I get coordinates. I don't get, can you see that there? I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? I get coordinates there instead of up here, right, where it is that I get actual degrees that are going on. Look at that. I've been in here so long that my nails are growing. It's unbelievable, huh? They're filthy. I got a shower tonight. We'll see how that goes. All right. So we have these here, and this is good. Remember that these are approximations. And so now this last one is where it is that I'm going to take, right, I took ratios, which is what trigonometry is, right? It's ratios of the sides, right? Then I took decimal amounts and did that, and these are non-reference triangles, right? 1 and 3 is a non-reference triangle, so I have to put that in there. Now I'm going to do this with radians, right? And I'm going to find the arcsine of the sine of pi over 3, right? So if I do this here, right? If I say that I'm going to find the arcsine, parentheses, of the sine of, what's pi over 3? Pi over 3 is what? What is that? That's right, 60 degrees, right? Because that's 180 divided by 3, which is 60. And ready? Handy dandy through the magic of kakalaki. Boom! 60! Oh my gosh. So, Mr. Street, you're telling me that the inverse sine of the sine of pi over 3 is pi over 3. And that is correct, right? Because remember that when I'm looking for the inverse sine, I'm looking for the angle. So this side here is 60 degrees. I'm looking for the inverse sine of the sine here. The sine of pi over 3 is going to give me what? It's going to give me radical 3 over 2. And the inverse sine of radical 3 over 2 is going to give me 60 degrees, right? This gives me the ratio. This gives me the angle. So you're saying to yourself, Mr. Struth, this is great because I know what the answer to B is. The answer to B is 2 pi over 3. Thank you for playing. We have a nice version of the game, home game for you. Home detention, home isolation, home for you. So here's the note down here, right? Please note that the inverse sine of the sine of x equals x only if x is greater than or equal to minus pi over 2 or less than or equal to pi over 2. 2 pi over 3 is greater than half pi. So that means that I have to do some work now. All right, are you ready to do some work? Let's do some work. So let's take a look here. So 2 pi over 3, 2 pi, what's that? That's 360, that's 120, yes? So what's going to happen here is that there's going to be a flip. There's going to be a flip. Right? There's going to be a flip that's going to give me 120. Is that right? I hope that's right. That's 120. So that means that this is going to be 60 here. So this is going to be radical 3. This is going to be 1, and this is 2. All right? I believe so. So that means that this, right? Because my answers I'm looking for between, we have to remember here also that the range that I'm looking for is between pi over 2, negative pi over 2, and pi over 2. So 2 pi over 3 is greater than that. All right? Is greater than that. Yes? So I need an answer that falls between 90 and negative 90, or negative 90 and 90. This, as we stated right off the bat, is that this right here is equal to $1.20. That does not satisfy. The same way up here that there was no solution, right here I have to work something else out, all right? But now I know that this is going to be the opposite, right? Because it's the sine, so it's radical 3 over 2. So now I have the inverse sine of radical 3 over 2. And so now when I draw my picture, when it is that I know that the opposite is radical 3, the hypotenuse is 2, this is 1, I know that this is 60 degrees, so 60 degrees is actually going to give me pi over 3 as my solution. All right? So hopefully that makes sense. You got to make sure that you're paying attention to the you got to make sure that you're paying attention to the domain, and you have to make sure that you're paying attention to the range as well. All right, this would be one of those things that I would make sure that I put on my handy dandy reference sheet when the time came. All right, so let's remember that there is a 3-day weekend this weekend. Congratulations. Congratulate me too. It snuck up on me. I had no idea that this is a really early Memorial Day. It would have been great if the pools were open, but they're not. Thank you, Mr. County Executive Mark Ehrlich. Right? Remember that come voting day, right? That the pools are not open. And I got money that says that they're not going to be open all summer. But you know, if you want to make that bet, you got to email me, and I will make that bet with you. I'm covering. Also remember that that this weekend is Memorial Day, so on Monday, right, take some time to give thanks and pray for those families who have people in the armed forces, right, who fight to defend the freedoms that we enjoy here at home. So, all right, hope you guys are well. If you have any issues, shoot me an email. And if not, then I will see you back here on Tuesday. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a quiz coming up soon. Study up. See you. Bye.